In Blade Runner 2049, the 2017 sequel to the original Blade Runner released in 1982, Joy is an AI partner to the protagonist Officer K. She is introduced as a fixture in the otherwise solitary life of Officer K. Her character is not only the only source of comfort for K, but importantly, she is the only character that humanizes Officer K, who is himself in crisis over his humanity, being himself an android. Joy is the first person to give K a name.
Joe.
You're too important for Kay. Your mother would have named you.
And the last thing she says to Kay before she's destroyed is,
I do hope you're satisfied with our product.
I love you.
on the face of it, the relationship between Joy and Kay is a typical romance. Or should be a typical romance, were it not for a complication, because there is a third party inextricably involved in the relationship. The presence of the Wallace Corporation, the company who designed Joy, sold her to Kay as a consumer product, and who ostensibly still own the license to her, looms over the whole story and the relationship. The company's presence is marked by the trademark Wallace Corporation sound and logo that plays whenever Joy is turned on or off. It's alluded to in all the times Joy's presence and body is used as a Wallace Corporation marketing device throughout the cityscape, and it's the only thing that serves to cast any doubt on the authenticity of Joy's love for Kay. However, Kay doesn't seem bothered by this fact. He is very much aware of Joy being a commodity for his consumption.
I see you're also a customer. Are you satisfied with our product?
She's very realistic. Thank you.
The question then becomes, of course, how could someone settle for a consumerist simulacrum of a human relationship? How could someone fall in love with a person they know to be a lie? As we've established, it's not just the case that Kay is lonely. He is also in crisis over the status of his humanity. He knows that he is an android manufactured for the sole purpose of hunting down other androids, and to be able to carry out his function and still keep his conscience, he had to convince himself that the people he was killing are not human. This necessarily means that he himself is not human and does not have a soul. And Kay is perfectly resigned to accept this fact, which manifests itself in a self-defeating, joyless attitude to life. And so it's because of this that Kay is more than fine to love an AI system, a product, as his intimate partner, because to him Joy is as real as he is human, and has just as much of a soul as he does. Things, however, get complicated when he is given reason to believe that he might actually have had a mother who gave birth to him and a father who protected him from being discovered as the child of an android. These possibilities would mean that there is a chance that he was loved, cared for, and has a soul. Of course, we come to learn that he was wrong. The memories he has of being a child are confirmed as being not his own. And with that, the hope that he was someone special and perhaps someone worthy of real love is lost. And he is forced to confront the reality of his crushing desire for real human kindness, love, compassion, and companionship that until now he was able to dismiss as an impossibility. Powerful stuff, right? But there's a glaring omission in this picture of the AI girlfriend as a metaphor for Kay's loneliness. From Officer Kay's perspective, Joy is the only source of love and comfort in his life, albeit a hollow, empty one at that. But what happens to the story when we look at it from Joy's perspective? Because mind you, Kay had other options for simulating intimacy. Kay also had the options of real-life sex workers, for instance, which is as transactional a relationship as his relationship with Joy and the Wallace Corporation. But he chose the perfect AI housewife that can't leave the house except in his possession, and that also just so happens to look like Ana de Armas. Was it just his loneliness and self-hatred that the Wallace Corporation was able to use to sell him Joy? From the way that Joy is framed in the movie as a feature in the conflict between Kay and the Wallace Corporation, it's obvious that Joy is just another tool in Kay's oppression, and the movie doesn't want us to think of her as being conscious. But what if she was conscious? What would happen to the metaphor of the AI girlfriend if we looked at it from the girlfriend's perspective? In the 2013 movie Ex Machina, we have three main characters. Nathan, a billionaire CEO, Caleb, one of his employees, and Ava, Nathan's new humanoid, artificially intelligent robot. The main plot of the movie follows the scientific experiment that Nathan has enlisted Caleb for to see whether Ava can pass a Turing test, which is to say, if from the perspective of Caleb, Ava can convincingly pass for human, for having consciousness and sentience. However, there's a secondary plot that doesn't get as much attention in the movie, but nonetheless determines its outcome. And that is the fact that the whole time, Ava is testing Caleb for whether or not he can be trusted. For in the characters of Nathan and Caleb, we are presented with two archetypes of masculinity. Nathan is egotistical.
I think that's exactly what
I just thought, fuck, man, that is so good when we get to tell the story, you know? I turned to Caleb, and he looked up at me and he said, "You're not a man, you're God."
Yeah, but I didn't say that.
So,
He has a morally dubious business ethic.
You hacked the world's cell phones?
yeah, and all the manufacturers knew I was doing it too. But they couldn't accuse me without admitting they were doing it themselves.
And crucially, he's a vile misogynist, a serial abuser of women, and the man keeping Ava locked in a windowless basement in his remote mansion/laboratory. In fact, it's so easy to hate Nathan that not even his killer disco moves can redeem him. And on the other hand, we have Caleb, the nice guy. And I'm not being facetious when I say that. Caleb's niceness, his moral character, is central to the story. Not only is it the case that his character juxtaposes Nathan's misogyny, and it's through his perspective that we judge Nathan's moral excesses, but also his goodness and moral compass is central to facilitating Ava's escape from Nathan. So looking at the plot from Ava's perspective, with her desire to be free as the thing that drives the action of the plot, knowing what she knows of humans from her internet-powered intelligence, and knowing what she knows about men and male sexuality as the force that is keeping her from her freedom, when Caleb enters the picture as the only other human she has ever met, other than her abusive creator, she has two options for getting Caleb to help her escape. Engage his empathy or engage his sexuality. And as smart as she is, she uses both. She befriends Caleb.
Do you want to be my friend?
Of course.
And seduces him.
Are you attracted to me?
What?
Are you attracted to me? You give me indications that you are.
I do?
Yes.
Her test, therefore, for Caleb is to see which one motivates him to free her, his empathy or his sexuality. The significance of this test is to see whether or not Caleb sees her as a person in need of rescue or a love object to be won as a prize for his heroism. To Caleb's credit, he does show some awareness of the power imbalance between him and Ava as a factor that could compromise her ability to consent to a true love relationship with him. But this manifests not as a realization that he is the only human to have met her other than her abusive creator, or the fact of the literal glass separating them both during their interactions, but as a skepticism of her sexuality as a whole.
Did you program her to like me or not?
I programmed her to be heterosexual, just like you were programmed to be heterosexual.
Nobody programmed me to be straight.
You decided to be straight? Please, of course you were programmed. By nature or nurture or both. And to be honest, Caleb, you're starting to annoy me now because this is your insecurity talking. This is not your intellect.
As Nathan rightly points out, Caleb is only asking these questions out of insecurity for his nascent sexual feelings toward Ava. The AI that he's not yet certain is even capable of consciousness. While Ava continues to pass Caleb's test of her consciousness, Caleb fails Ava's test of his moral code. In the moment when she achieves her freedom, in the first time that she and Caleb are in a room together without the glass divide between them, that was a symbol of their power imbalance, she stands over him and poses her final question to him.
Will you stay here?
Stay here.
At this moment, Caleb is offered the opportunity to escape. The door out the room is open, but instead he chooses to watch Ava dress as she puts on the skin of her fallen sisters to hide her machinic construction, becoming naked in the process. The AI woman as a seductress captures the fear that many men have of being manipulated by their sexuality, of having their loneliness and desire for romance taken advantage of by women with ulterior motives. But when seen from the perspective of the AI, this becomes less of a genuine male fear and more of a male character flaw for being able to take a computer program as a lover. Never mind whether or not these AI women are conscious. Let's grant that they are conscious, okay? Let's grant that they are capable of consciousness and sentience. That does not automatically mean that they are capable of consenting to love the person that creates them, owns them, or controls their mobility. A non-negotiable element of true romantic love is the full and unhindered agency of either partner to consent to a relationship. True romantic love is therefore seriously compromised to the point of it becoming something else entirely, ranging from familial love to Stockholm Syndrome, when either party is materially dependent on the other. Dependence is a definitive characteristic of the relationship between a parent and child, a caregiver and care receiver, not a fulfilling romantic partnership. So the fact that, for instance, Kay can fall in love with a home-ridden, technologically imprisoned Joy, that Caleb can fall in love with a desperate and abused Ava, and on the very extreme end, that Nathan has sex with the women he creates and confines, are representative of a serious psychological deficiency in these men. On the extreme end, it's a manifestation of the desire to own women, to have a compliant, obedient sexual object. On the less extreme end, I feel like it's still also the desire to own, but it manifests itself as a need to want to protect, right? To rescue or keep safe the object of their love. But the cost of this style of loving women is that a woman asserting their independence is received necessarily as a threat to the stability of the relationship. Because if men can only love by being of service, what becomes of that love when they're not needed in that way? Caleb wants Ava to be free, but only free to be with him. This conflicts with Ava's desire to be free, period. And so she is forced to make the decision to leave Caleb behind. When we see the male loneliness epidemic and the men's rights movements as a result of, in response to the achievements of feminism, it reveals two assumptions. Firstly, that the main solution to male loneliness is partnership with women. And secondly, that apparently something about traditional masculinity is at odds with the aims of feminist liberation. Now, most feminists would simply point to toxic masculinity as the root of this conflict. But as we've established, the men that fall in love with AI girlfriends in this problematic way are the good guys. Their possessive masculine style of love is motivated at least in part by the desire to protect. Now, you could say that the desire to protect and possess is itself misogynistic because it assumes ownership of women and patronizes us by assuming we need to be protected. But if I genuinely believe that, it'd make me a self-hating woman. Because, and I don't mean to get too personal here, but I want a man to want to possess and protect me. Does it make me a bad feminist for wanting a big strong man to protect me and take care of me and possess me like I'm his little... doll? Maybe. But still, for more enlightened women than I, and also lonely men, something about the modern heterosexual relationship dynamic is just not working. We're all talking about the rise of lonely men, but what people really mean when they're talking about lonely men is lonely single men. Because, newsflash, women get lonely too, and loneliness is on the rise for everyone. The difference is that men associate loneliness with being single, and when women feel loneliness, it's typically also in our relationships with men. Luckily, for the purpose of this exploration, there's another AI human romance movie that covers exactly this issue. Let's talk about Her. In this 2013 movie, released the same year as Ex Machina, by the way, and which got Best Picture nominee, the story follows the life of middle-aged writer Theodore, played by Joaquin Phoenix, as he falls in love with an operating system, voiced by Scarlett Johansson. Samantha is an AI voice assistant similar to Siri and Alexa, but she is set up in the movie to be more or less conscious. In Her, unlike in Ex Machina or Blade Runner 2049, there's none of the skepticism as to Samantha's consciousness or authenticity as there is with Ava and Joy, for instance. What sets Her apart from the other depictions of the AI girlfriend is that it's not a thriller. The official consensus around the movie is that it's a romance. And the movie makes a point of obfuscating the typical moral and ethical conundrums that come with the AI girlfriend. For one, the company that designed and programmed Samantha, and that ostensibly still owned the license to her, isn't named. Whereas in the other two movies, that power dynamic between the company and the human/AI relationship is central to the story.
Element Software is proud to introduce the first artificially intelligent operating system. An intuitive entity that listens to you, understands you, and knows you. It's not just an operating system, it's a consciousness. Introducing OS 1.
After that little bit of exposition about the AI system that Theodore purchases, that dynamic is more or less brushed over in Her, so that we can get straight to the romance between Theodore and Samantha.
But what makes me, me, is my ability to grow through my experiences. So basically, in every moment I'm evolving, just like you.
That's really weird.
But here's the thing, the ethical questions about falling in love with artificial intelligence and the philosophical questions about whether artificial intelligence can be conscious and sentient was what made the trope of the AI girlfriend an interesting sci-fi premise to begin with. Unfortunately for Her, because it brushes over these questions to focus on pure romance, it makes it, how do I say this politely, really boring. Her is a really boring movie. But before you skip this section, let me clarify. It's really boring in a way that's genuinely fascinating. Tension is what makes a romance, the will they, won't they question. The whole appeal of a romantic drama, like the kind Her tries to be, is the emotional danger that comes with any sexual relationship. Her tries to simulate that emotional danger in a way by giving Samantha the agency to be able to outgrow Theodore and eventually leave him. But the premise of the start of the movie, which can't be ignored, is the fact that Samantha's whole purpose for existing, the motivation that informs her very design, is for her to meet the emotional needs of the user who purchases her. In this case, Theodore. The effect that this has on my engagement with the movie is far from allowing me to see it as a moving romance between two people, makes me view Her as a biopic about the glorified, dramatized, extended therapy session of a middle-aged white guy going through a divorce. Yes, did I mention the story of Her, the relationship between Theodore and his emotionally intelligent operating system, takes place in the foreground of the final stages of a messy and painful divorce. And that's why I'm choosing to talk about this movie. Because yes, it's boring, but there's a moment that comes over an hour into the movie, almost precisely at the halfway mark, that gave me hope that the movie could have become something more interesting. It comes when Theodore musters up the courage, aided by the support of his new AI girlfriend, to meet his soon-to-be ex-wife for the signing of the divorce papers he has until now been avoiding. This scene, 1 hour into the 2-hour movie, is the first and only time that Theodore's relationship with Samantha is challenged by a character.
So what's she like?
Well, her name's Samantha, and she's an operating system. She's really complex and interesting. And
Wait,
it's only been a few.
I'm sorry. You're dating your computer?
And not only that, it's the first time we are given a glimpse into Theodore's relationship with his ex-wife Catherine that isn't the rose-colored version we were shown in the flashbacks he had to the relationship when he was feeling lonely. The movie makes clear that Theodore feels loneliest without Catherine, and in order to feel good about life again, he needs to be in a relationship with another woman, in this case an AI, who herself feels good about life, who in turn makes him feel good about life.
Yeah, she's been really good for me, you know. It's good to be with somebody that's excited about life. She's a real,
However, Catherine, as someone deeply familiar with Theodore's incapacity to deal with more complex or painful emotions, reveals how lonely she felt in her relationship with a man who could not reciprocate her emotional availability.
But it does make me very sad that you can't handle real emotions, Theodore.
they are real emotions. How would you know what?
What? Say it.
The reason I think Her is a boring movie is because, first of all, as I said, it gets rid of the philosophical questions about whether AIs can really be conscious or not, and therefore whether humans and AIs can realistically fall in love, which drives the dramatic tension in these other depictions of the AI-human romance. But in simply establishing that Samantha is conscious and trying to frame the relationship between her and Theodore as a romance, this one scene is the closest the movie comes to questioning why Theodore would even want to fall in love with an AI that he owns, conscious or otherwise, and that's designed to meet his every need. And it's obvious, at least from Catherine's perspective, which again wasn't explored in the movie, that Theodore just isn't capable of handling complex emotions, difficult emotions. If he could, a frictionless relationship with an AI designed to meet his every need would not satisfy him. In all these depictions of AI women and human man relationships, a few things stick out as a recurring theme. Men being lonely and women being sold as the solution to that loneliness, and women being lonely or trapped and leaving men as the solution to that problem. So the real question is, for at least men and women who want to be in a committed relationship with each other, what is the real source of this tension? Is it the fact that the masculine style of love is entwined with the need to protect and possess? Or is it the fact that women tend to have different emotional needs than men that men are not always equipped to satisfy? The way I see it, none of these things are themselves issues. The fact that men self-actualize by being protective and possessive of their partners is a good thing. It's a trait that should be expected of anyone in different ways, man or woman. And the fact that men and women have different emotional needs and capacities is not in itself a bad thing either. It is, however, a bad thing if all of these needs, emotional and self-actualization needs, are being met by one person. The truth is that it's always been the case that men derived a sense of identity from being protectors and possessors. But historically, that protectiveness extended not just over his partner, but also his family, his village, his township, his community, and any of the many social groups he would have belonged to. And women too had their emotional needs met by a whole community of people, and rarely ever looked to her man to fill those needs. The way I see it, modernity puts on us an insane amount of pressure, not only to be in a relationship, but for the relationship to do so much for us. Where once we had whole communities to fill our emotional needs, we now have one person who we expect not only to be our romantic lover, but also to be our best friend and closest confidant, as well as our ticket to fully participate in society and enjoy any semblance of financial security and stability. Our romantic culture imagines functioning couples doing more or less everything together and being the center of each other's lives. Your partner is supposed to mean everything to you, we are told, and complete you, so to speak. But that's a horrendous amount of pressure to put on one person. And I think the reason that we are talking about male loneliness more than we are female loneliness, even though they are caused by the same societal issues of alienation and isolation, is because men are less equipped to be able to find emotional fulfillment outside a relationship. We've had now decades of feminist messaging teaching women to be strong, independent, and love on our own terms. But men are still being sold women as a solution to their loneliness and self-actualization needs. It's either that or material wealth and success under capitalism. In saying that, the AI girlfriend trope is doing nothing to help the situation. It not only perpetuates the idea that women are the solution to male loneliness, but it reinforces the expectation that a romantic relationship is the biggest and most important source of emotional fulfillment in people's lives. From my perspective, the failure of men to imagine other ways of understanding and meeting their emotional needs is not unconnected to the way in which women are portrayed in these kinds of films, as either manipulative seductresses, compliant housewives, personal secretaries, and sex slaves. For men and the mainstream public at large to be able to imagine ways out of the loneliness crisis, I see no better method than uplifting women and their stories. It's in the best interest of men and everyone that the female perspective be centered for once, if only so we can escape the myopathy of discussing the universal loneliness epidemic from the perspective of men and the quote-unquote male loneliness epidemic. Because, and I cannot stress this enough, women are lonely too. So thank you for watching. If you liked it, please, of course, like, subscribe, and comment. I have Patreon. I have my Patreon. I recently moved 2 videos that I had up on YouTube to Patreon just because it doesn't really fit in with the type of content that I want to continue making, these sort of more thought out analytical video essays. But I still like these videos. It's just, I don't know, I think I talk too much and I reveal too much. And just because they're not as thought out. So if you want to see those, they're up on my Patreon. And oh my god, I need to get better at this. Signing off.